These 6 pranks were meant to be harmless fun, but they ended in tragedy. From office jokes gone wrong to social media stunts that turned deadly, these are the stories of people whose final moments came not from malice. It was April 1st, 2017, in Seattle, Washington. The downtown insurance office was busy. Open cubicles, rolling chairs, and filing cabinets filled the floor, with power strips and cords underneath. April Fool's Day had become an informal tradition in the office. In past years, pranks were small and rarely addressed by management as long as work continued. There were no written rules about them, and supervisors did not intervene unless productivity dropped. Elaine Turner was 56 years old and worked as a senior claims reviewer. Her job involved approving or denying complex insurance claims. She was not a manager, but her decisions carried weight. Elaine kept her desk orderly and positioned her chair close to the workstation. She avoided unnecessary conversation and followed the same routine each morning. Several younger employees worked nearby. Over time, they described Elaine as hard to read and uncomfortable around jokes. Someone suggested that getting a reaction from her on April Fool's Day would be harmless. The group settled on a spider prank. Something quiet and visual. They bought a realistic rubber spider and attached it to clear fishing line. The plan was to tape the line to Elaine's desk lamp so the spider would drop onto her keyboard when she powered on her computer. To hide the line, it was run down the back of the desk and taped loosely along the floor. The line crossed part of the space where Elaine's rolling chair moved when she leaned back. They tested the setup once while she was away. One person sat briefly in her chair, but did not roll it back far. The spider dropped as expected. No one adjusted the placement afterward. No supervisor was informed. Just after 9 a.m., Elaine arrived, set her bag under the desk, and pulled her chair in. Several co-workers watched from nearby desks. When she pressed the power button on her computer, the spider dropped onto the keyboard. Witnesses said she reacted by pushing backward in her chair instead of standing. As the chair rolled, one of its wheels caught the fishing line stretched low across the floor. The chair stopped abruptly. Elaine's upper body continued moving. The chair tipped sideways and she fell out of it. Her head struck the metal corner of a filing cabinet behind her desk. People nearby reported a sharp impact sound. She did not stand up. Co-workers rushed over and saw blood pooling near the base of the cabinet. The fishing line remained stretched between the desk and the lamp. The rubber spider hung motionless above the keyboard. Elaine remained unresponsive. Later findings determined that the fall caused a fatal head injury from contact with the cabinet's metal corner. The prank was identified as the direct cause of the fall. The employees involved were terminated and later faced a civil wrongful death case, though no criminal charges were filed. That section of the office remained closed for the rest of the day. Elaine's desk was never reassigned. The dented filing cabinet was removed weeks later. It was October 13th, 2017, in Plano, Texas. The evening was cool and clear, and a quiet suburban street was settling down for the night. Most houses had porch lights on, and traffic had slowed to occasional cars passing through the neighborhood. Jason Patel was 19 years old and home from college for the weekend. He lived with his parents in a single-family house with a long concrete driveway that sloped slightly toward the street. Jason had grown tired of what he saw as constant monitoring from his parents. They called frequently, asked where he was going, and worried about his safety even when he was nearby. Earlier that week, Jason complained to a friend that his parents treated him like a child. He talked about how they reacted strongly to minor issues and assumed the worst in ordinary situations. He decided to prove his point with a prank that he believed would scare them briefly and then force them to see how unreasonable they were being. Jason planned a fake kidnapping. His friend Marcus agreed to help, believing the prank would last only a few seconds. The idea was simple. Marcus would wear dark clothing and a ski mask. Jason would stand in the driveway where his parents could see him through the front window. Marcus would grab him, Jason would shout, and then both would stop once his parents reacted. Jason disabled the driveway lights earlier that day to make the scene harder to see. A borrowed van was parked nearby to complete the illusion. Jason believed the darkness would add realism without causing harm. At around 8:30 p.m., Jason positioned himself near the front of the driveway. Marcus approached from behind, wearing the mask and dark clothing. When Marcus grabbed him, Jason began shouting for help as planned. Inside the house, Jason's parents heard the screams and rushed to the window. From their view, they saw a masked figure dragging their son toward a vehicle in the dark driveway. The scene appeared sudden and violent. Jason's father grabbed a handgun kept inside the house and ran outside. The distance between the front door and the driveway was short. In the low light, he saw his son struggling with a masked person. Marcus released Jason when he saw the father, but the movement was unclear in the darkness. A single shot was fired. Marcus was struck and fell to the ground near the driveway entrance. Jason shouted that it was a prank and ran toward Marcus. As he moved quickly across the sloped driveway, he caught his foot on the curb edge. He fell forward, losing balance completely. His head struck the concrete near the base of the driveway. Witnesses later said the impact sound was loud and distinct. Neighbors began coming outside after hearing the gunshot. Both young men were on the ground. Marcus was conscious but unable to move his legs. Jason was unresponsive. Later findings determined that Jason died from a severe head injury caused by the fall. The prank was identified as the direct trigger for the events that followed. The shooting was reviewed by a grand jury, which declined to file criminal charges. The house remained dark that night. The driveway stayed empty in the days that followed. It was June 14th, 2016 in San Diego, California. The early evening was warm, and a mixed-use apartment building near a busy commercial street was active with foot traffic and noise from below. The building had shared balconies facing the street, separated by metal railings and narrow ledges. Cars moved steadily through the intersection beneath the building. Evan Morales was 23 years old and worked as a shipping clerk for a small electronics distributor. He had recently moved into the building with 2 roommates to save money. Evan kept a low profile and was not well known outside his job and small social circle. He spent most evenings at home and rarely stayed out late. That night, a few residents and guests gathered on one of the upper floor balconies. People stood along the railing, talking and watching the street. Alcohol was present, and several people had been drinking. Security in the building was limited, and residents often brought guests onto the shared spaces without restriction. Among the group were 2 acquaintances who had talked earlier about playing a quick joke. One of them had a high-powered green laser pointer he had bought online. The device produced a bright dot that was visible even in low light. The plan was to shine the laser briefly on Evan, or the wall near him, then admit it was a prank. No one discussed what Evan might do if he reacted suddenly. The prank was not cleared with anyone else on the balcony. Just after 9 p.m., Evan stood near the railing, facing the street. Below him, cars slowed at a red light. From several feet behind, one of the pranksters raised the laser pointer. A bright green dot appeared on Evan's upper chest, then moved to the wall beside him. Witnesses later said Evan stopped moving and looked down at the dot. He turned his head toward nearby buildings across the street. The laser appeared again, this time on the railing near his hands. Based on his actions, it appeared Evan believed the dot was a real threat. He stepped backward, then quickly turned toward the railing. In one motion, he climbed onto the ledge, likely attempting to drop down to the balcony below. The distance was greater than it appeared. As Evan shifted his weight, his footing slipped. His hands lost contact with the edge. He fell several stories. On the way down, his body struck a storefront awning before hitting the sidewalk. People on the balcony shouted and rushed toward the railing. The laser pointer fell to the ground during the scramble. Pedestrians below ran toward Evan as nearby drivers stopped their cars. Someone called 911 while others tried to keep people back. Later findings confirmed that Evan died from injuries caused by the fall. Investigators determined that the laser prank triggered the chain of events that led to his death. The individuals who used the laser were questioned but not criminally charged. Afterward, residents reported fewer gatherings on the balconies. The building management issued reminders about shared space rules. The laser pointer was never recovered, and the balcony where the incident occurred remained quiet in the weeks that followed. It was July 18, 2016, at Lake Lanier, Georgia. The afternoon was hot, with temperatures in the low 90s, and families crowded the public shoreline to swim and cool off. The area where people entered the water was marked with buoys, but there was no lifeguard on duty. The lake water was dark and uneven, with sudden drop-offs and submerged rocks common near the edge. John Jackson was 19 years old and the oldest of 3 brothers. He had finished high school the year before and often helped look after his younger siblings during family outings. Relatives described him as responsible, especially around water, where he usually stayed close to younger swimmers. Peter Jackson, 15, was the middle brother. He was known for joking behavior and pushing limits. He spent a lot of time watching prank videos online and often talked about trying similar stunts himself. Family members said he liked getting strong reactions from people and did not always think ahead. That afternoon, the Jackson family and a few relatives were spread along the shoreline. People moved in and out of the water without much structure. Some stayed near the shallow area, while others swam farther out. The lake bottom sloped unpredictably, with some areas dropping quickly. Earlier in the day, Peter had joked about pretending to drown to scare people. John told him not to mess around in deep water and warned him it was dangerous. The comment was brushed off, and attention moved elsewhere. Later, Peter swam away from the main group toward deeper water. After a short time, he began splashing and calling out, raising one arm while letting his body dip below the surface. From a distance, it looked like he was struggling to stay afloat. Several people nearby hesitated, unsure whether it was serious. John noticed the movement and heard his brother shouting. Based on his actions, it appeared John believed Peter was actually in trouble. John entered the water quickly from the shore and swam toward Peter. Witnesses later said Peter continued the act as John approached, briefly going under before coming back up again. The movement drew more attention and people began pointing toward the water. When John reached his brother, Peter grabbed onto his shoulder as part of the prank. The sudden weight pulled John downward. Both went under the surface. John struggled to regain balance as Peter clung to him for a moment longer than expected. While underwater, John's head struck something hard beneath the surface, likely a submerged rock or debris. Peter released his grip and surfaced. Realizing the situation was no longer under control, John did not come back up right away. People on shore began shouting, and several adults rushed into the water. After a short search, John was pulled to the surface. He was unresponsive and not breathing. Emergency services were called, and first aid was attempted at the shoreline. John was later pronounced dead due to injuries sustained during the rescue attempt. Investigators determined that the drowning had been staged as a prank and that John entered the water believing his brother was in real danger. Peter survived and was not criminally charged because of his age. The incident deeply affected the family. In the weeks that followed, warning signs were added near the swimming area, and visitors were reminded of the lake's uneven bottom and lack of lifeguard supervision. It was March 4th, 2016, in Columbus, Ohio. The dinner rush was underway at a busy chain restaurant near a shopping center. Tables were close together. Servers moved quickly between aisles, and the room was loud with conversation and kitchen noise. There were no medical staff on site, and most employees had only basic first aid training. Michael Reynolds was 34 years old and worked as an insurance claims processor. He was not well known outside his job and small social circle. That evening, he was having dinner with coworkers after work. The group sat at a long table near the center of the restaurant, sharing appetizers and talking over the noise. One of the coworkers was Evan Carter, 22, the youngest in the group. Evan often joked around and liked pulling attention toward himself. Earlier in the evening, he mentioned prank videos he had seen online where people pretended to choke or have seizures in public to see how others reacted. The comment did not lead to much discussion and was brushed off as idle talk. As the meal continued, plates were cleared and new food arrived. Without warning, Evan began coughing loudly. He knocked over his glass and brought both hands to his throat. His chair scraped backward as he slid partly off the seat. At first, a few people nearby laughed, assuming it was a joke or exaggerated coughing. When Evan continued, his face reddening as he gasped and pointed at his neck, attention shifted. Servers paused and diners at nearby tables turned to look. Michael stood up and moved toward Evan. Based on his actions, it appeared he believed Evan was choking. Michael stepped behind him and tried to help. Witnesses later said he did not use the standard abdominal thrust method. Instead, he pulled Evan backward and applied pressure high on the chest and neck area. Another diner from a nearby table joined in, attempting to assist. The second person grabbed Evan from the side, adding force while Evan continued to struggle as part of the prank. The combined movement made it difficult for anyone to keep balance. As Michael pulled backward, Evan's weight shifted suddenly. Michael's feet slid on the tile floor. He fell hard onto his back, still holding Evan for a moment before letting go. Michael's head struck the floor with a sharp sound that cut through the noise of the restaurant. Michael remained on the floor without responding. Evan stopped the act and said it was a prank as servers rushed in and someone called 911. Nearby diners stepped away to clear space. Emergency responders arrived and attempted resuscitation. He was later pronounced dead due to a severe head injury caused by the fall. Investigators determined that Evan had staged the choking as a prank and that the response from bystanders, though intended to help, led directly to the fatal injury. No criminal charges were filed, as there was no intent to cause harm. The incident was ruled an accident resulting from a staged emergency and an incorrect intervention. In the weeks that followed, the restaurant updated its emergency response training and posted instructions on proper choking assistance in staff areas. The table where the incident occurred remained unused for several days, and the dinner crowd gradually returned to normal. It was March 14, 2023, in Los Angeles, California. The evening was mild, and traffic noise echoed through the downtown streets below a mid-rise apartment building. The building had narrow balconies with decorative metal railings meant to separate residents from the drop to the courtyard. Riley Chen was 21 years old and lived in the apartment with a roommate. She was a college student who posted short reaction clips and lifestyle videos online. Her accounts had a few thousand followers, but her growth had slowed. Friends said she often talked about needing a post that would stand out. In the days before the incident, Riley mentioned doing a near-fall stunt on her balcony. The idea was to make it look dangerous on camera but stay controlled. The plan was not to jump or fall, but to lean outward and then pull back, creating the impression of a close call. Riley bought a basic climbing harness online and borrowed a carabiner. She clipped the harness to the decorative balcony railing behind her. The railing was bolted into the concrete wall and looked solid, but it was designed as a barrier, not as a load-bearing anchor. No secondary line or backup anchor was used. Earlier that afternoon, Riley tested the setup by leaning back slightly. The railing flexed, but held under light pressure. She did not apply full body weight during the test. No one else checked the setup. At around 10:30 p.m., Riley started a live stream from her balcony. Her phone was mounted on a small tripod aimed outward, showing the railing and the open space below. Several hundred viewers joined as she explained she was attempting a controlled stunt. Riley stepped onto the balcony edge and placed one hand on the railing. She leaned forward slowly, letting the harness take some of her weight. At first, nothing moved. The railing bent slightly, then settled. As Riley leaned further, more of her weight transferred to the harness and anchor point. The metal railing began to flex more noticeably. A faint metallic sound was picked up by the phone microphone. The bolts holding the railing to the wall started to pull free. The mount gave way under the load, with the anchor point failing. The harness no longer restrained her movement. Riley lost balance as the railing detached. The live stream camera captured the railing tearing loose before the image jolted. Riley fell forward over the edge of the balcony. She fell several stories into the building's inner courtyard. The phone remained on the tripod, continuing to stream until the connection cut out moments later. Residents in nearby apartments heard a loud crash and looked down into the courtyard. Someone called 911. Building security arrived and cleared the area. Riley died from injuries caused by the fall. Investigators later reviewed the live stream footage and the balcony hardware. They determined the stunt had been planned as a fake near fall and that the railing was never intended to support body weight. The incident was ruled an accident caused by improper use of safety equipment and an unsuitable anchor point. Afterward, the building management inspected other balconies and posted notices warning residents not to sit or lean on railings. The live stream footage was removed from the platform, but copies circulated briefly before being taken down. Thanks for watching. Click the next video to watch more.